This episode of Active Listeners Podcast contains some adult language and mature themes. Hello and welcome to Active Listeners with Mike
and Shane.
Each week, we will discuss our lives, our goals, and our expectations as artists, as well as discuss what it is to be an artist.
Performers, visual artists, and musicians, Mike and I would like to talk to you about what you do, why you do it, and what that art really means to you.
We'll have guests to discuss artistic expression and the all-around nature of the artist's lifestyle.
Is there a de facto artist lifestyle?
Well, that's one of the things we're going to uncover.
Please follow us on Twitter
and Facebook
and join in on the conversation.
Welcome to our very first episode of
Active Listeners. There it is. Technically, welcome to our sort of 1.5 episode of Active Listeners. Last week, we did our session 0, where Mike and I kind of discussed what we were going to be doing in this podcast, talking about art and our lives and society and how that all piles on to one another.
Yes, and today's very first topic is going to be about family. How family informs what we do and how we navigate the world and our work with our families in mind.
And we certainly aren't just talking about this vague idea of a blood relative encompassing the entirety of family.
No. Like many of you listeners, we have acquired individuals into our lives that we both consider family.
That difference between chosen family and forced family, I guess that seems a little aggressive, but...
Chosen family and the family that we're blessed with.
There it is.
So, so we're going to just jump right into it. And also later on in this episode, our very first guest is going to join us, Katie Osborne Moneymaker. Katie is a performer, both on stage as an actor, also a magician.
And a musician.
A musician, yes. And also our younger audience members that are on TikTok will know Katie as Catieosaurus. Catieosaurus, who is also, I would consider, a bit of an art activist on TikTok, and we'll talk to Katie a little bit about her messaging on that platform. But first, we're gonna get into a little bit of Shane and I's experiences with family.
I suppose I'll begin where it all began. So I was born in upstate New York to my mother, Donna, and my father, Richard. And from there, it all went awry. I went to school. They taught me to speak. I started to do it publicly.
Oh, no.
And honestly, I would say my art stuff sort of started musically, which I touched on last episode. I did a lot of music stuff, which was fun for my mother the first time because I went into an audition. It was a kid's audition, and we had to sing Yankee Doodle. And I went in, and all these kids, like 10, 12, 14, they're singing Yankee Doodle, and they're singing their hearts out, and it's adorable, right? And I get up there, and I just bust out I bellow Yankee Doodle. And it was the first time I think my mom ever actually heard me sing. And we get in the car, and she's like, "Where the hell did you learn to do that?" And from that point on, my mother just became my biggest fan. The person that pushed me and pushed me and pushed me.
Yeah, my mother was certainly my biggest fan growing up. I think one day when I was very young, too young really to remember, I think I have a memory of it that I made up, those like memories that someone told you something, so you're like, oh yeah, it must have gone like this.
I remember
And
that clearly.
so yeah, mom came home and she had one of those play school, I imagine, or maybe Fisher Price, like chunky plastic, yellow and orange plastic uh, art tables for toddlers. And I'm I'm fairly certain it was a hand-me-down, which is fine. Recycle, reuse, reduce. Um, and yeah, and ever since that day, so before I could actually formulate proper memories, I've had a crayon or a pencil or a brush just glued to my little hand. And yeah, I think the very first time I kind of realized that I was kind of good at it was in uh first grade or kindergarten. Um my my mother got called into school um for a conference because I had drawn a picture of a panther
Nice.
and he was eating a very fresh antelope kill. And the teacher was a little concerned because of how realistic it was.
Oh, because you were documenting nature in the hierarchy of the food chain?
And being my number one fan, my mother's response was to frame it and put it on her desk at work. And I believe unto this very day, she still has it.
Oh, that's beautiful. Also, I don't know if this podcast is the right place for this, but as soon as you said reduce, reuse, recycle, all I could think about was Rocco's Modern Life. RECYCLE recycle. So
Yep, 90s kids. 90s
so that
90s
might make it
kids.
in the podcast. I mean, we are diving back into our families, so some of these memories will rush back like pogs.
Well, you and I were also babysat by television, if I
Yeah, I
recall.
mean, I'm most certainly a latchkey kid,
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
for a large part of my life coming from a single parent home. Let's get a little real with it. My father spent most of my childhood in jail, so I spent most of my life being raised by my mother, which was fantastic. But that means she did work two jobs. And like Mike said, that means, we're responsible for taking care of ourselves when we get home. And sometimes that means maybe not doing homework and instead watching Rocco's Modern Life.
Or just drawing. The next part of the journey in this topic kind of goes into that first instance of family and their interaction with our art into what I consider the formative years, right? Outside of blood relatives, my very first instance of having a familial relationship with people that weren't directly related to me would be a family. My best friend, it was Mike and his family, and they really just kind of from the time of like late middle school into high school kind of took me in, and they too were another source of constant positive reinforcement when it came to my art. And if my mother was my number one fan, his mother was my number two fan. And yeah, and to this very day, their family to me. And yeah, and at that point in my life is when I actually started doing acting and performing. And yeah, they were really supportive and interested and invested. And in our last episode, I mentioned like art. We got sappy, and I said, art saved my life. And I think that in a way, having that connection with those people played a big role in steering me away from some of the things that a lot of kids that grew up around me kind of fell into in terms of making bad decisions and getting sucked into, bad
Yeah,
lifestyles.
I mean, bad decisions were everywhere, and it wasn't until high school where I also started sort of acting, auditioning for those roles because the drama people were the weird people that would kind of let you hang out with them. And I still talk and are invested in those people's lives today. There's 5 of them, and every couple weeks we get together, especially since quarantine, on a sort of Zoom call like this, and just shoot the breeze, and find out what each other is doing artistically, and see how we can help invest that. My friend Mark is a phenomenal singer and will inevitably be on Broadway. So it's always great to kind of hear where he's coming from and what he's doing. He's been doing a lot of online sort of singing burlesque shows, which has been a lot of fun. Yeah, it's just that sort of once you find that artistic family. Speaking of family, how can we cut Mike Lake just giving his wonderful wife a kiss goodnight? That's adorable. That supersedes anything I had to say.
Yes, she's off to dreamland. And then I think that brings us to the next phase of family building. And Shane and I, 13 years now.
Wow.
I think.
Wow.
And it's safe to say that Shane is definitely family to me.
Oh, without a doubt. Oh God.
There's, a whole slew of people that also fall into that category that we have the pleasure and are, lucky enough to continually work with throughout the years, some of which are involved with our theater work with Will Kemp's Players, and beyond. And I think that one thing that is great about doing this podcast is that Shane and I get to share 45 minutes at least a week, kind of talking in a way that we would be talking anyway.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like we just took so many of our conversations from the past and we're like, yeah, a lot of those should probably be podcasts.
So let's get a little bit more specific. There's a certain societal judgment, right, behind what it takes to be a successful artist and how that relates to family.
Yeah, and I guess what type of art you find yourself funneling into has a whole slew of sort of expectations, whether they be good or bad, of how your family life will go in that artistic field. You hear, rock musicians have a notorious bad reputation for family. The starving artist in his cabin in the woods by himself, or the suffering artist that can't have a family because they're so involved in their artistic expression. When that's just not the case, because without a family, chosen or not, your art seems empty.
Yeah, and surely there are examples of these things, right? I mean, stereotypes don't come from absolutely nowhere. We also, I think, especially in the modern age, we think back to these examples of artists that are those archetypes. They created those archetypes. You know what I mean? The tortured artist, Van Gogh, like the only reason why he's the example of the tortured artist is because he's the most famous tortured artist.
Yeah,
right?
You cut off your ear, you get a reputation.
Exactly. People talk about it,
and you're right. The sort of people recognize the beauty in the art that they created and start to think that the only way that they can make that type of art is by doing exactly what that artist did. When it's such a personal journey beyond that. Of course, take inspiration from artists left and right. I mean, Mike inspires me constantly. but I'm not gonna try to sit down and draw a superhero. I know better. Uh, there was a time in college where I would look at Mike drawing in class and I would be like, oh, I can do that. I bet you I could look back in some of my notebooks and find like desks that I was trying to draw in proportion during some mysteries class.
Great. I wasn't taking notes because I was drawing, and you weren't taking notes because you were trying to draw like me. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
It's amazing either of us made it anywhere. Speaking more personally, we have also in this part of this conversation two very distinct, different artist family examples. I myself, I'm married. I have two children. And I live a very most people would consider a traditional family lifestyle. And
You traditionalist.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Carly and I have been together for what, almost 14 years. Be 14 years next year. Married since 2014. So, she's been my number one support. In all of the artistic endeavors, and her family has been wonderful in terms of being supportive of all of the things that I do. And it's definitely traditionalist.
Boring.
So
You see,
normal and boring.
me, on the other hand, have a very different familial sort of background. I was married. I think that is relevant to who I am and the type of art I produce now. I also don't exactly have any kids. I don't know how this portion of the podcast could be erased completely, but I have...
No, let's talk about it. Yeah, because you helped build the family.
Yeah, like
that is fucking special, man.
It's so weird. I had a friend from high school who came to me wanting to produce a child and couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
They were spending thousands of dollars a month trying to conceive, and they couldn't afford it anymore. And these two people deserved children more than anybody that I have ever met in my entire life, maybe with the exception of you. And I did that. I did that for them twice. And they have two beautiful children because of it. So while I don't personally raise them, I know them, and I'm going to get to know them in their adult lives. It'll be interesting, but clearly a different motivator than being married with a couple of kids that I am responsible for until at least 18.
And it's funny too, because like everybody says like, oh, when you become a parent, like you change, and when you become a parent, all your friends see you differently. But like I certainly see you differently. You know what I mean? Even though our situations aren't the same, like the day you told me that that's what you were doing, I think you were a little afraid that I was gonna feel a way about it, and I don't know why, but I definitely felt that apprehension.
I felt that way with everybody.
Yeah, but like I have so much respect for that. And
thanks, man. That means a lot.
Later on, we're gonna hear another story about how families are made, and I don't want to steal Katie's thunder, so I'll hold off on that. But
can we from here on out just refer to her as Catieosaurus? Is that
Catieosaurus, the dinosaur that we are going to interview later. Can I honestly say, like that name in and of itself is just emblematic of the creativity that just oozes from Katie. So like, I'm not gonna lie, like it's on brand. It really.
I mean,
is.
and to even speak further to chosen family, Katie and I went to school together, so I've worked with Katie for years and years and years, and man, I just am endlessly entertained by the things that come out of Katie. Always.
I downloaded TikTok because of Katie. She is the only person I follow on TikTok. Literally, one person It's her.
You're gonna guilt me into getting a TikTok, aren't you?
So yeah, so download TikTok, follow Catieosaurus because she's awesome. Um, any thoughts before we pull in, come into the guest segment?
It's crazy. I feel like as I was coming into this episode, I was super apprehensive. But now recording it, I feel like we could probably talk about this for another hour. Really dive into the minutia of that granule family dynamic that has motivated both of our arts, and how that somehow in some timeline intertwined, and we now get to make art together.
I actually just want to take this last final moment to mention as well, maybe to get on a soapbox a little bit. I think that we should let everyone determine, what family means to them. And I think we should allow everyone the benefit of experiencing what creating a family is and what family can be, and focus less on this artificial
I mean, how
this
close were
artificial
we? How close were
rule
we
and
to starting this episode with some Webster definition of what family was?
Right. And as we looked at it, really the only definition that could even do what we believe family to be any justice is so far down on the list that I'm kind of ashamed of the human race. It's definition number 4. And it says a group of people united by certain convictions or common affiliation, a fellowship. And that is really, for me, the number 1 definition.
And to harken back to session 0, it is about your community. It is about the community you decide to build. It is about the community that you decide to bring together. And community and family are and should be synonymous.
Okay, so now we are going to talk to our guest, Katie Osborne.
Hi.
Also known as Catieosaurus.
Yes, on
Also,
various platforms.
I'm a man of many names.
Love it, love it. All right, so Katie, thank you for coming and being on the podcast. I guess we'll just start with a little opener. Tell us your pronouns, and then a little bit about your work.
Yeah, so my name is Katie Osborne, otherwise known as Catieosaurus on the TikToks. My pronouns are she, her, or they, them. I'm kind of figuring that one out right now. And what else was I supposed to talk about? I have ADHD. You may have heard.
Yeah, you can talk about that, and just a little bit about your chosen art worlds.
Oh, sure. So primarily I'm a performer. I used to say that I'm an actor, but in a very weird sort of twist of fate, for the past like 2 or 3 years, I've actually been a magician more than an actor, which is a very strange transition. So I've been performing my whole life, starting as a kid, and then after college I decided to get serious about it, which is how should I acknowledge that I know you both? Like, I feel like I'm just like, hello.
Yeah,
Just
that's
like,
definitely.
I was like, that's how I met you guys.
Yes.
Shane and I were in the same grad class, just studying Shakespeare, among other things. And and so now I do Shakespeare, and I make TikToks about sex and ADHD, and I do magic. I don't know. My life is very confusing.
Magic was definitely one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about, not because it has anything to do with family or our topic this episode, but just because I really love magic.
Yeah. Well, and also it was like kind of right field. Like it was not a thing that I was doing when I like knew you. And then,
right at the end of college, you sort of
it was because
dabbling.
of Midsummer. Like that was how I started dabbling, was that production of Midsummer. So like it was John Belomo's fault.
Who did you play? Who did you play in Midsummer?
So Shane and I were in this production of Midsummer that was like this commedia themed production of Midsummer, and the director decided I was playing Puck, which was bananas. But the director decided that he really wanted Puck to do like this like large scale magic show in the middle
Constantly.
of on stage, in the middle of like the lovers like magic swap scene. And so like one of the first things that I did was learn how to do this like big stage illusion, and it was part of the reason that I got like really interested in magic, because I thought it was like really cool. So there you
And
go.
we don't talk about it very often, but Katie and I also had a failed magic show that never even made it
I
in front of an
forgot
audience.
about that.
We
Oh my
rehearsed and
god.
rehearsed,
We
and then
rehearsed it. We
I've
spent
never
so
heard
much.
about this.
Oh my god. Shane, you should tell the story. I totally forgot about that show.
we spent probably 2 or 3 days preparing to busk this magic show where Katie completely designed and created a transformable dress. And I would like throw like confetti or whatever it was over her, and she would spin and her dress would just like unravel and become something else. We had books with caution tape coming out of it. We were
It was because it was for
ridiculous.
it was for the Harry Potter thing. You have to
That's what
say
it
that
was.
part. It was
Oh,
we were
instant.
doing
Yeah.
like a like for the Harry
Mischief
Potter
and
thing in
magic.
Stanton. Yeah. We were doing they asked us like put together a magic show, and then they were like, never mind. Basically. They're like, JK, JK. And I was like, okay, well, I have this costume now that I'm still kind of certain is sitting in a corner at the MMC rehearsal space. Like, I think it's still there.
Wow.
So one day if we've got to retrieve the dress and actually we got to put the show on for
Should.
somebody.
It was a really good costume. It was honestly really well built. Like, I did a good job.
We spent hours in different thrift shops searching
Hours.
for fabrics that would
Uh,
like drape correctly. It was
It
crazy.
was like a whole thing because you have to like there's like just a whole technique to building those dresses, and I was just like I got really into it. But yeah, oh my god, I haven't thought of that in years. Thank you, Shane.
You are very welcome. I suppose that brings us to the meat and potatoes of why we brought you here.
Okay, now I'm nervous. I don't know why I just got nervous, but I just got nervous,
It's like you got called to the principal's office.
and I was like, okay, well, I guess I hope my answers are good.
We been talking a lot about on this episode about our family, about our chosen family, and our I think we deemed it forced family.
You deemed it for his family.
I'll take that. So we sort of would like you to speak on how you view family. We sort of gave our own definitions of family. We gave that really awful Webster definition.
Garbage.
It was garbage.
Garbage.
So how do you define family?
I'm adopted, so I have a really kind of interesting take on family. Like, family for me has never been about blood. It's never been about the people that you're related to, because like I've never been related to any of my family. And then even more than that later on, and if you want, I can talk about this later on, but like I found my birth mom and my biological father, and like that was really weird because then all of a sudden I had people that I was related to, and it really like made my relationship to what a family is a little bit more complex. But the thing is like for me, family has just always been the people who show up for you, whatever that means. And I think that's really important to remember. I don't know, because like I don't ever feel that obligation of like, well, they're related to you, they have to be nice to you, or like they're your blood, they're your kin. And I was like, I'm not kin to anybody, and but there's still people that like I would take a bullet for, and so it's just like, I don't know, like, yeah, family is weird to me, but there you go.
And
Yeah.
also, I imagine what complicates it even more is you've gotten married.
Yeah,
So
I got married.
You added to that sort of that family that you've been, what sounds like you've just been expanding on and expanding on.
Yeah, I mean, and that was another thing too, was getting married, so you kind of inherit a family with the person that you're getting married to. But the nice thing is that like Chris's family kicks ass. Like Chris's family is the best. And so it's wonderful because, I was really worried. You're always really worried to like meet the in-laws, but they were so welcoming and kind. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about like earlier, is like I remember one of my favorite memories of meeting Chris's parents for the first time was that I jokingly demanded a bowl of green M&Ms in the dressing room, like completely as a joke. And they did that. Chris's dad bought a bag of Christmas M&Ms and sat with a knife and divided them red and green and put a bowl of green M&Ms in the guest room where I was staying as like a joke. And I was like, that's family. Like, that's what family does. And like, that was like that, like, and I was so nervous and I'd never met them before and I was staying at their house and it was weird. And then it was like, I walked in to see that and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, and that was, you know, that was really cool.
In terms of in-law stories, that is one of the smoothest I've ever heard.
It was, I got really lucky, but I'm also very like, I'm very charming. I'm very good at like the meet the parents phase. Like I'm like psychopathically good at it. I'm like, yes, I'll say all the things that I need to say and do.
Your parents will love me more than they love you.
Right. It's like a running theme in a lot of my relationships, actually.
Did the art you make shift when you got married? Did you notice that you sort of brought these people into your life and it all of a sudden started to inform your artistic expressions?
I don't know if it changed, but I started believing in my work more because I had somebody who believed in me. That was interesting. And then also like, you know, we started doing art together, like us, like the murder mystery. Like we started doing the murder mystery together. Not that that's like art, but you know, like we would write the scripts together and you know, like I would write a script and Chris makes it funny, or Chris writes a funny script and I make it make sense. And so like we developed this like artistic partnership in that that I think was really interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing was just Chris has always just encouraged me to like do what I wanted to do. And so it's like, yeah, go be in the show, go do that thing, go to Minnesota for a month and work at a Shakespeare festival. Like he's always just like, yes, go do the thing. And I think that's made me a better artist because I feel like at least one person believes that I can do it, even when I don't.
I already mentioned earlier how you're the reason why I even have a TikTok and you're the only person that I follow. And one of the things I love is when I see Chris on the videos. And it's great because like we do know both of you. So if he wasn't there, it would be weird. Just because I know the dynamic between the two of you.
Yeah.
And that he's also like a creative person. So it's like, it's a super treat, like whenever he's around.
He also has his own fan club now, which I think is really funny. Like Chris gets fan mail from people who are like thirsty for Chris, and it's delightful. It's delightful.
How do I sign up for is there like a fan base email sort of thing?
You can join the Discord server. That's where you find us most of the time. But yeah, it's like really funny. Like people will just be like, "Oh my God, Chris is here," and I'm just like, "It's Chris. Like he's my husband. Like what is happening?" Yeah, there's a lot of thirsty TikTokers for Chris. So
as it should be.
I know. I was like, rightfully so. Have you seen him?
Beautiful lumberjack of a man.
We love it. We love him.
As said, as I'm wearing flannel.
I was gonna say, it was like it's little on the nose.
So this, in these moments, is why we need the Instagram, Mike, because...
Yeah, I'll get on it.
Okay, I had a question about one of your questions. You said, please talk to us about your recent commercial. What commercial?
Your Instagram commercial.
Oh, Rich Victorian Widow?
Yes. It was so good.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you the story if you want. It's kind of a funny story. So as you know, I'm a TikTok superstar. Can't say it out loud without laughing. It's so stupid. But so basically there's this woman who works for this sex toy company, and she's a really big fan of my TikToks. And so she messaged me and she was like, "Hey, we would love to give you some like free products in exchange for like putting us on your social medias." And I was like, "Free sex toys? Yes, please." Obviously, like I'm not an idiot. So I said yes. And then we're like talking back and forth. And I realized because like she wanted me to do like hey, people with ADHD, do you struggle with sex? Like, well, here's like some like sex toys and like let's talk about what they do and stuff. And I was like, no, that's just gonna get taken down super fast. Like you can't show the product, you can't like talk about like because TikTok's like really strict. So I was like, okay, but you know what would be really funny? And so I was like, so I mentioned it like half-hearted, like as a joke, like straight up as a joke. I was like, haha. And she was like, yes, we don't even want Katie anymore. We only want Rich Victorian Widow. And I was like, okay. And so I made the video like because I have a rule with Rich Victorian Widow. Like I only like they're one shots, like because it's all just improv. And so I'm like, if I can't be funny the first time, then it's not a good enough video. So like I like had a glass of wine, I did the whole thing in one shot. And then I posted it like the next day and I was so nervous. Like I was like, either people are going to be like, what the fuck is this? Or they're going to be like, this is amazing. And thankfully everybody really liked it. But now I've been getting more messages from people being like, so are you their official sponsor now? Like, are you going to do more videos? And so like, I don't know what's going to happen with it, but that I did
You
get
are
paid actual
obviously
American dollars to do that. They
if
paid
they
me actual money.
if they don't ask you to do at least a series of episodes or like commercials like the Geico guy, you're way better than that guy.
I was like, listen, but I was like, it's so niche. But I feel like I like in my mind, like I want to be like the poopery girl. Like she's so like distinctive, but it's such like this weird product. And I was like, that'd be really funny if I was just like a grumpy Victorian widow, like talking about sex toys. I was like, I think it'd be great. So I don't know if you're listening, write a letter, tell them to hire me again.
You could start a show on the E network. Remember Talk Sex with Sue? Am I the only
Yes.
one? Like,
Well, I was just on the American Sex Podcast with Sunny Megatron, and Sunny Megatron has a new sex ed show on, I think, Stars. And so like she's doing that. And so like that show was kind of what I was thinking about when I made that video, because I was like, hire me to review your sex toys as an elderly angry woman.
the target market, right? Like,
Yeah, the target market.
what is
yeah,
it when you
yeah.
can't find a job? Just make one up.
I mean, that is literally what I have done. Like I like right now my life is the definition of that. Like I have no idea what's going on 90% of the time, yet here I am. So it's fine. It's so weird.
So
Okay.
I actually think that brings us kind of towards the end of this segment with you, Catieosaurus. We've touched on a lot of the questions we wanted to touch on. You know, we really want to talk about family and how that family informs your art or doesn't inform your art. Is there anything else you'd like to add at the end of this?
I think that you guys are great, and I'm really happy you have a podcast because I like you so much.
So at the end of each interview, we are going to ask our guests to grace us with either a special mini performance or to
great.
play a game or to do something that is completely off topic and completely has nothing to do with the rest of the episode.
And
Okay.
this can range from singing us a song, doing a draft for your next commercial, listing your favorite musicals alphabetically.
I think I know what I want to hear.
Okay, what do you want?
I
what
want
do
to
you me
hear
do?
rich old Victorian ladies
Okay.
ad for our show.
Okay, hold on. I have to do a costume change.
Just got to get in character.
Gotta get in
Yes.
character. Hello, it's me, a rich Victorian widow. Do you like podcasts? Do you like radio? Do you miss the fireside chats of that handsome Franklin Delano Roosevelt? Then I have news for you. Turn on your Victrola, turn on your phonograph, turn on whatever the internet kids are using to listen to their podcasts today. Stitcher, when I was a child, a Stitcher was someone who worked in the theater like some sort of peasant. So come on down and listen to the Active Listeners podcast, hosted by two people who are far less underwhelming than my last 3 husbands. Thank you. Okay, now I gotta turn back into
Yes.
Katie. I gotta
Did you
make her-
record that for your own TikTok?
I didn't. I should have. I have some regret. Because the problem is like if I do it on TikTok, then I'm tempted to like stop and start. That's the thing. So, because I'm like, no, I could say that funnier, I could say that not funnier, and so I have to like not let myself do that. So I just yell into the microphone until I'm happy with it. But
Rich Victorian Widow wants you to listen to Active Listeners Podcast. And we want to thank Katie for joining us today as our very first guest. And this was a lot of fun. And I'm glad it was someone that we knew and that is special to us. And we hope
Aw.
that our listeners think you're special too.
I mean,
And,
they will
yeah.
definitely think I'm special after this.
Thank you so
Thank you
much
guys
for your
for
time.
having me. I love you guys so much. So thanks for having me.
All right, Shane. So what is this week's listener engagement?
The listener engagement is what we've been talking about this entire episode. How do you define family? What defines your family? What family dynamic has motivated you to produce art lately?
Go ahead and let us know what family means to you, how you choose your family, and then how that family informs your art, or who in your family can you always rely on to support your creativity. Go ahead and head to our Facebook or our Twitter and let us know.
And once again, we would like to thank Catieosaurus for taking the time out, answering a couple of our questions, having some fun with us, and perhaps she will partake in our conversation on the Twitter or the Facebook. So please chime in and join the conversation.
Peace. If you like what you hear, leave us a rating. And if you really like what you hear and you'd like to support us, go to patreon.com/activelistenerspod and become a patron. Our theme music was created by Remodal. Thanks so much for listening.